Hello, 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 hello. I'm Kimberly Cecil Jones, and I'm filling in tonight for Mr. Aaron Viles. He should be back next weekend. But in the meantime and in between time, you're stuck with me, and we've got a great and wonderful show tonight. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss the breaking Kentucky political news, and there's a lot of it of the week. So we've got a great returning co-host this week, and then we'll have a conversation with Hadley Duvall. You do not want to miss her, the heroic sexual abuse survivor who reclaimed her story and helped to swing last year's election. Um, Finally, we'll close out with a critical call to action. But first, are you ready? I can see that you are, to help turn Kentucky purple. Let's think back a few Novembers, shall we? Last November, we re-elected Andy Beshear, a great moment for our Commonwealth, of course. The November before that, we rejected an effort to strip abortion protections from our state constitution. November shows that when push comes to shove, folks in Kentucky come together. We always do, for a kinder, more compassionate Commonwealth. Unfortunately, there's still supermajorities in Frankfurt that just don't care about making regular folks' lives better. And we are prioritizing giving tax cuts to rich folks and sending whatever's left over to private schools. It's clear there's still a lot of work to do in our state to win better electoral outcomes for our Commonwealth. Between now and this November, 146 days from now, will be focused on just that. We hope you'll support Progress Kentucky in our campaign for a more compassionate Commonwealth. Make a contribution right now via our secure online website at Blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, $500, $5,000. It all adds up. So we can use your help most definitely to continue to do the things that we do for the Commonwealth. So now it is time to check in on our co-host and let us know who and where you are and what are you protesting today. Oh, and yeah, you there on the internet. We mean you too. Let's hear what you are protesting today. Feel free to put it in the chat while we're sharing ours. So I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, Jefferson County, getting ready, yes, 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 for our state convention that will be held in Louisville on Saturday. So, right now, my protest is what it's always been. Hashtag boot out every last Republican in Frankfurt. That is my protest sign today. So, Martina, I'm so glad you are back with us, young lady. And what is your protest sign saying today to us?
Well, hey everyone, this is Martina Jackson, and I'm coming to you from Richmond, Kentucky, Madison County. And I'm going to say right now, and any and every time, democracy is always shifting and changing. So we have to get up and stand up for your rights. Remember, you need to be exercising that right to vote. And I'm going to be shouting that from the rooftops to all of our young people too.
I
Vote,
like it, Martina. I like it.
vote,
Vote,
y'all.
y'all. Vote, y'all. And wait a minute. Did you say, get up, stand up
Exactly.
for your rights?
That's what
Okay, I
Bob
know that
Marley has
song.
told
I
us.
know Dougie
Yes.
Fresh over there, Mr. Doug Price is Right, knows that song as well. So, what's your protest sign say today? I see your t shirt, Give Back, Give. Is that blood?
Yeah, blood. I'm a blood donor, kind of like our NATO is. Maybe we can get NATO to come up with a really good campaign sign for Martina on the Get Up and Stand Up. Uh,
Exactly.
this is Doug Price. I'm coming to you from Harrison County, Kentucky, and I'm protesting Republican shenanigans. And just hold that thought. At the end of Kimberly's story, I have something I'm going to comment on, and maybe all that will pull together. And I have the first story, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into that. On a recent Kernels of Truth, you heard from Tom Loftus related to his research on political campaigns, including contributions and expenditures. Tonight, I bring you another story related to his efforts. I had planned to do this one a couple of weeks ago, but wasn't able to do that, so I saved it. This one involves Senator Robert Stivers. Tom reviewed information from the Kentucky Registry of Election Finance and reported that Stivers had a substantial war chest and campaign fund totaling over $500,000. And he mentioned items where he had spent money, including a payment of $9,744 to the high-end Repeal restaurant in Louisville. Maybe Kimberly's been there and she can talk about that in a bit. According to the restaurant's website, they have private rooms that will seat 14 or can be converted to standing room for 25. Did Senator Stivers rent out the whole restaurant? I have no idea how many of his friends participated, but it must have been one heck of a party. Based on the menu, I expect a charge per person of at least $150. From the article, here is how Stivers addressed the issue. He likened the dinner expense to a cost a candidate might incur to rent a hotel ballroom on election night to celebrate a victory. This was a normal campaign expense. He said making political contributions or making donations to local civic organizations, sponsoring a sports team or club at a local school, giving dinners or gifts to supporters are all true political expenses that establish loyalty from supporters and goodwill in the community. Should a legislator have to provide the names of those people who attended this function? Were these lobbyists who asked him to support legislation being proposed or promoted by lobbyists? Should these kinds of expenses be reported to the Kentucky Legislative Ethics Commission? As far as I know, this expenditure has no requirement for reporting, but shouldn't it? Who were these friends? Corporate types that have reached out to Stivers either in person or maybe paying a lobbyist? The campaign lists 5 payments as sponsorships, purchases of advertising or donations to the following groups since January 1st. $1,000 to Oneida Tourism, $250 to Oneida Outdoor Adventures, $100 to Shriners, $50 to CCMS, and $100 to Owen County High School. $500,000 in donations and $1,500 out in donations to local civic orgs, and close to $10,000 for probably high rollers. Here is a link to the website where one can search the very little info provided in financial disclosures that all candidates and legislators are required to file. If you have a few minutes, some of the info will be interesting. Stivers, he is a wealthy man, lots of property, no debt. Back to the reporting on Tom. Of interest also included donations to $2,000 each to fellow prospective legislative members, including Al Gowring, who won the Republican primary over current Senator Southworth. I think it's fair to say that Stivers was not a fan of Southworth. If you have followed Progress Kentucky for several years, you will remember that we were the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee before becoming PK, and during that time I reported many times that Mitch used power to create money and then used that money to create power. It's cyclical. Apparently Stivers is quite adept with this, but only on a smaller scale. To be clear, all of this is legal. Why does a legislator have the need to raise these funds when he does not have an opponent? Here are some of the names of people, businesses that made donations to Stivers. The windfall included donations from 82 special interest PACs totaling about $100,000. Gambling interests gave big. Officials of Churchill Downs and Kentucky Downs each gave over $16,000. Other donor streams included Terry Fort, the head of Fort Bank, and Corbin gave the maximum contribution allowed of $2,100, and at least 16 other officials of Fort's companies gave another $20,000. Alliance Coal Partners CEO Joe Craft and his wife Kelly each gave $2,100. The Alliance PAC gave $2,000. In turn, Stiver's campaign gave $5,000 to the Kentucky Republican Caucus Committee, $5,000 to the Senate Republican Caucus Committee, and $5,000 to a state Republican Party trust dedicated to electing the party's state Senate candidates. Again, I refer to the cyclical nature of power, money, and power. Listen in next week when I will detail items that I think need to be addressed by several agencies related to legislative processes. I'll turn it back over to you, Kimberly. Okay, I think maybe Kimberly is not here.
We may have lost her.
Okay, well, Martina, why don't you go ahead with your part?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. And then we'll get back to Kimberly when she comes back on. So, in recent news, we had our second term Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams, who campaigned on, quote, "I'm running to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat and restore Kentuckians' faith in our Secretary of State's office and our election processes." I would say, Secretary of State Michael Adams has had his fair share of opponents, including members of his own party, the Republican Party, that suggested that the 2020 election results were not legitimate. He, in turn, has spoken out against that narrative, which is expected, and as he should. But in recognition of his work on early voting days and access to the ballot, he was recently awarded he accepted the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award, which I thought was interesting, especially because some of these things you would think would be the standard or the bare minimum for for the Secretary of State to be in motion, have these things in motion or in place. But in this case, I'm reading from the Kentucky Lantern article that this past Sunday, Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams thanked the JFK Library Foundation for incentivizing political courage because, quote, because it may be needed now more than ever before, end quote. And so in his remarks to the crowd, Adams reflected on the steps he took during his first term to maintain election access and integrity in 2020, when a heated presidential race was on the ballot, as we know, same for this election cycle, and before there was a vaccine for the highly contagious coronavirus that held the world in the grip of a pandemic. And so it reflects that Adams worked with the Democratic Governor Andy Beshear to protect Kentuckians' access to the ballot safely. And that included at that time expanding absentee voting and early voting days, the latter being that something that Adams continues to support heading into this year's presidential election. These are important, and it took a pandemic to realize that we were creating barriers for citizens to exercise their right to vote. I do think it is a shared success when we think about voter rights for all Kentuckians. It took Governor Andy Beshear to reinstate the voting rights of those specific with specific felonies. And even then, that wasn't guaranteed because Kentuckians had to go through a process to check to see if they were eligible. No support necessarily from the legislature to make that happen. Again, this is seemingly a one-sided effort. One needs to consider we still have work to do to make voting accessible to young people and civic education. So I say, let's see if the Secretary of State can also move his party and supporters to be inclusive, such as going to the extent of reinstating the right to vote for people who have served their time. And because what is important about this is that this seems to be in question for voting eligibility in terms of if you have a felony, but not if you can run for president of the United States. And I'll leave us on that note and hand it back over.
Okay, Kimberly. Are you ready
Hmm.
to jump in?
That was very good about Secretary Adams. Yes, very much so. Still on the fence, but still, I'm thinking Martina. He's still not good for Kentucky.
Problematic. There are things, even, especially with, we're looking at another Trump Biden situation, and you know, upholding a candidate like that is problematic, in particular for Trump, and the conversations even around, you know, he if Trump were elected, that he'd bring conversation up around voting rights for felonies, or for people who have had felonies. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't we not already have those things in motion? And it's only, coming up now. And so, it gives me pause, when we have a Secretary of State who, kind of seemingly is playing on the fence in some ways, trying to play it safe, but still is siding with that particular candidate. And that's not good for Kentucky.
I, I have a comment about Secretary of State Adams. I've met him a couple of times, very personable, that kind of thing. And he tutored under Mitch McConnell. Uh, I think that probably says a lot. He knows the words to say to try to appeal to a lot of people, but I think in his heart, he is uh, not the kind of Republican that I would like to see elected, I think.
Very much so. So, just gonna go on over here to my girl. Oh boy, 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 boy. Mm, 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 mm. Hey, y'all. The Kentucky Supreme Court affirmed an appeals court ruling that Representative Nima Kukari is disqualified from running in the Democratic primary. Then they came back and said that she could. Okay, so this story is from Joe Sanka at Louisville Public Media. The Kentucky Supreme Court ruled last week that State Representative Nima is disqualified as a candidate in the Democratic primary, negating her apparent win 2 weeks ago. At first, it was looking like she couldn't, and then it looked like she could. And now the court decision affirmed the previous ruling of the Kentucky Court of Appeals just before the election, which stated that the incumbent was ineligible to run in the primary because of one of the signatories of her candidate's filing form was a registered Republican at the time. Oh my God, Nima, how did that happen? A day ahead of the primary election, the Supreme Court paused the appeals court ruling to allow the Democratic primary to proceed while the justices could review the case. The justices heard oral arguments in the case on Thursday with Chief Justice Lawrence B. Van Meter, indicating that they would issue a ruling as soon as possible. The winners of the May 21st primary are expected to be certified by state election officials on Monday. The order indicates that the court is issuing the quick ruling for the benefit of the parties due to the timing of the challenge, adding that the court will render an opinion in due course. Nima received 78% of the votes in the primary, well more than William Zeltz. I hope I said his name correctly. The only other Democratic candidate in the race. Exactly what's going to happen next is not very clear to us just yet. The parties to the case differ on whether the local party gets to choose what candidate will be the Democratic nominee in the general election, or if there will be a special election primary. Nima's attorney argues she could still qualify as a general election candidate should she be chosen by the party, but the petitioner is challenging her candidacy, says she would remain disqualified. Both sides do agree that Zeltz should not be in the party's nominee, but that decision may be up to the High Court. The petition to disqualify Nima Kulkarni was filed in March by Dennis Horlander, a former Democratic state legislator who served for more than 2 decades in Louisville before he was defeated in the 2018 primary by Nima. So, Doug, what you got for me? I know you got something for me about this. My heart, I know her personally. Her dad was a big time Democrat in the party. Nima has done so much for us, and now here we are.
Yeah, that was a great report, Kimberly. I watched Nima on the floor, and she's a very intelligent young woman, and she needs to be in the legislature. But I'm going to take us in a little slightly different direction. You remember my sign? I talked about shenanigans. I want to shed some light on the timeline that led us to where we are in this situation, and allow me to connect the dots. The filing deadline was January 5th, and one of the people who signed her filing papers was a Republican at the time of filing, which is a no-no. You have to have two of the same party, two Democrat if you're running for a Democratic position, etc. The error was found on January 8th, 3 days later, and was corrected. The election was held on May 21st, with Nima receiving 78% of the vote, which Kimberly noted, and the Kentucky Supreme Court ruled that her win is vacated due to the filing error. Dennis Horlander filed a lawsuit in March 2024, noting that Nima should not be on the ballot, and she was allowed to remain on the ballot, and then the Kentucky Supreme Court stepped in after the election was over. In between January and March, HB 580 was filed. Actually, it was filed in February 2024 and sailed through the legislature with no opposition at all. Why is this important? Listen to this change that was made. Any candidate who is defeated, and then they inserted disqualified in a partisan or nonpartisan primary, shall be ineligible as a candidate for the same office in the regular election unless there is a vacancy pursuant to KRS 118-105. Basically, I think the Republican-controlled majority in the Senate and the House, they inserted that word disqualified just in case the Supreme Court ruled that Kulkarni could. And I think they inserted it to make sure she would not be able to run if the Supreme Court had ruled that she could. I wonder if the Kentucky Supreme Court was aware of these shenanigans or not, and if so, would that have changed the outcome? Perfectly legal, I suppose, but certainly seems underhanded. I can just see the high fives that happened after the bill was passed. In my opinion, filing a bill specifically to make sure Kulkarni could not run this cycle shocks the conscience, and perhaps the Kentucky Supreme Court should revisit and take this into consideration and reverse their decision, or possibly order that any correspondence related to this issue be provided to the court. Obviously, we the people who voted to elect Kulkarni with a vote total of 74 to 78% of the votes in 3 elections should have a say in this. Those are my comments.
Wow, that I never thought about that, Doug. You know, you're always so thorough. That gives us something to really think about.
I think so.
Corruption at every angle, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I could like ponder on that all night long. I'm gonna have to relook at this again and just really let it sink in. The investigation, the investigative reports that you do, Dougie Fresh. Um, but Martina, what do you think about what Doug just said? Are you like
Yeah,
shocked out of your
that's it is
mind? Are
it
you
is it's a lot to take in, especially because there are so many layers to this in terms of um, from when the error was found and corrected to this particular bill aligning in the timing of it. That is interesting to say the least. And quite frankly, it's unfortunate. Having that people, you know, she went through the process. Was, she won the nomination technically, going through this process. And then it was, sorry, you've been disqualified. And so that feels like a gut punch in a lot of ways, to like you going through the process and then being the voters having that taken away from them. I think is problematic.
very, very problematic? I just feel so bad for Nima. She's such a good person. But you know what? I've got a guest right now that you all have been waiting for. I have been waiting for. She is my shero. And I just want to talk a moment about Miss Hadley Duvall. She's a young woman who I truly think we all owe a debt of gratitude. She played a critical role in humanizing the harsh anti abortion policies of Daniel Cameron. Thank God he's gone. And clearly positioned Andy Bashir as the true compassionate leader for our Commonwealth. Her powerful ad called out Dan Cameron directly and put choice on the Kentucky ballot last November. Welcome, Hadley. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for having me.
she's such a beautiful
Absolutely.
young lady. Look how beautiful she is and that
Thank
smile. Oh my
you.
God. Like, are we supposed to interview you or are you a model? I'm trying to figure out. To be
Oh,
young
thank
again,
you.
right? I used to be cute too when I was young.
You're
But
still cute. What are you talking
oh,
about?
so yeah, keep telling me lies. I'll take it. So, Hadley, I got a question for you. I'm gonna start off, okay?
All right.
I'm sure everyone has seen your ad when the election cycle was going on. And I saw your ad and I was like, I wish I could meet that young lady. She's so strong and fierce, you know? But how did that come about? And how did you find the courage to really share your story?
So when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I went back to a place that I hadn't been in a long time, and that was my childhood. And it really sat with me and for a while, and I sat with the news and I sat with the memories that I had of what I had gone through. And a lot of people at the time didn't know that I was impregnated when I was 12. And, even a lot of my family members didn't know when I decided to share it. And then the day after Roe v. Wade was overturned, I made a Facebook post just letting, really my close friends and family who were on social media sharing the celebration of the overturn, that it was not a celebration. And, if they felt that it was, that I hope that they could look at me when I was 12 and still tell me that it was a celebration. And that was why, I had made the post. And it got shared a lot and it got a lot of people talking. But then it was almost a year later whenever I got a call from the Bashir campaign asking if I would be willing to do an ad. And I think the phone call lasted like 5 minutes and I was agreed to do it and like set and scheduled for 2 days after that to go and film this ad. Like it took no time for me to say absolutely.
Wow.
That's huge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Doug, you got Martina, you got a question? I see it on your
I
face.
do. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that takes a lot of courage. Not It's not easy to share that side of yourself, especially when, it is related to something that was painful. But when I saw that ad, I really felt like you were standing on business. You were there to speak your truth. And because of that, have you had people reach out to you after that ad came out, in terms of maybe people have experienced a similar situation, and how have you handled that?
Absolutely. I have had so many people reaching out in support and just like really appreciative of what I did. But I've had so many other survivors reach out to me, and some who I'm the first person they've shared their story with. And
Mm,
that
wow.
just means so much to be that person, to be just a 22-year-old girl from Kentucky, like just graduated college, and somebody in another state is reading what I've gone through and is messaging me, taking the time out of their day, and I'm, made them feel heard, even if it's just between me and that person. That is just so rewarding within itself.
Mhm. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That truly is. And um, I just want to say, thank you for being brave in that, but also not stepping back from it, because I know that that could probably feel like a lot.
There were days for sure. There were times when it's been a lot, and it, came with a lot of abnormal things to, especially being a senior in college. So,
Sure, yeah.
but it's definitely, I don't regret it even for a second, and I wouldn't change it if I could. And I don't plan to stop anytime soon. So,
Right.
Okay. I want to jump in. I want to make a few comments too. I think it's amazing um, that when you received that call, you were sold in the first 2 or 3 minutes. So yes, this is something I want to do. This is something that I need to do, and I think that says a lot about your character. And I really appreciate. Of course, I saw they had like a lot of people did, and it was certainly amazing. And I want to ask, has this changed your life? How does it make you feel to be in the forefront of this important issue?
it has 100% changed my life. I will say that. Looking back, starting my senior year of college, couldn't even tell you that I was going to end at this point.
Mhm.
I had always planned, I've never been really political, like not publicly, not vocally. But, everybody that knows me knows I've always been very open and very into being an advocate for sexual assault survivors and, just children of incarcerated parents and just the at risk youth. That's always been the targeted population I wanted to work with. But stepping on to the political side and really the advocacy part, and having another door open, and as far as the politics, never would have been what I would have expected. And I never would have thought I would even say like I work in politics, but it has definitely changed my life for the better. And I've had so many amazing opportunities. I've been to Boston to speak. I've been to Washington D.C. I'm going to Nashville soon to speak. I'm going to New York soon. So it's just been really really fun to meet a lot of passionate feminists along the way, meet so many strong women who can help show me my way, because I'm really just figuring it out as I go. And it's a blessing that I have so many people just willing to help me, and it's changed my life in the best way possible.
Uh, I want to make one more comment about that. These speeches that you're making, you are, I mean, I don't, I almost want to cry. You are touching other women, other people out there who maybe have gone to the same thing, and they see how strong you are, and the words that you share with them are so important. And you're an amazing person.
Well, thank you so much.
So, I want to ask you a 3-4 part question. I'm very famous for doing that.
That's all right.
A lot of our viewers and also our listeners on the different avenues that we do the podcast, they may not know exactly about the ad. I don't know how they couldn't, but there are some that may not know about the ad and the reason why the ad was made. I think it's important that they understand what exactly happened to you when you were 12.
Well, I started to be abused when I was 5 years old, and it continued for 10 years. But when I was 12, I was actually impregnated, and I was in the seventh grade. And, Roe v. Wade, like we had Roe back then. And the first thing that my abuser told me was, you have options. This is what they are. And then, I ended up miscarrying, being a 12-year-old, and just not knowing even what I was going through. It was a really dark and scary time. And that still, even getting pregnant didn't make me speak up about the abuse. I didn't speak up about the abuse for 2 more years after that, almost 3 years. And when I did speak up about the abuse, I didn't speak up about the pregnancy. I kept that to myself. That was a real nightmare. That was a time that it wasn't just a moment of something that I had to shut out. It was, what is going on inside of my body? What is happening to me? I was in the seventh grade, and knowing now that we don't have Roe, and there are currently 12-year-olds carrying the child of their rapist, it's very heartbreaking to me. And that is really why it didn't take me any time whenever I got the opportunity to get on the platform and speak up and speak out about it. If not me, then who? I've walked the shoes, I've been in it. And I fight for all women to have right to an abortion, but especially the survivors, because I resonate with them the most, and I can speak from the heart for them and for the ones that don't have their strength, and I will continue to speak for them until we have Roe again.
And what was your major that you graduated with?
I was a psychology major with a concentration of drug and alcohol counseling. My mom is a recovering addict, and I've always wanted to go into the drug and alcohol field to work with the children of addicts. And so I'm really excited. I'm a first generation college graduate. So woohoo.
Me too. Congrats.
Woohoo. Congrats to
That's
you.
a big deal. That's a big
Yeah.
deal.
That's what my degrees are in as well, is
Really?
psychology.
Okay. I plan to get my master's in social work, but I
Okay.
am going to take this semester off. So I won't be starting until next spring.
Okay.
Martina, I can see it again in your face. You got another question.
I do. So, kind of similarly to along the lines of Doug talking about messaging, what what what's a message you would like to leave with young people now when it comes to civic engagement and just using your platform?
I want the youth, especially, to know that it is never a bad idea to get educated and get involved. I was always against, I wasn't against, I was always uneducated in politics because it was boring to me, but it was only boring because I couldn't understand it.
Sure.
Now that I'm educating myself, it makes perfect sense and it's not boring at all. And you need to pay attention to what's going on. And, if you have something passionate that you're passionate about and you have an opportunity to speak up, or you have a platform that you can use, and if you have a social media, you have a platform. So use it. It does not matter if I have some of my closest family members that are not on the same page as me, some of my closest people, and it doesn't matter. I did not ask anybody for permission before I agreed to do an ad. I didn't even call my mom and say, hey, I'm doing this. I called her after and said, hey, this is scheduled. So, you just find what you're passionate about and stand on that. It does not matter if the whole world is against you, because you will find your people. You will find your village that will support you. You will find everybody that wants you to do well. And, it'll matter, and you will matter, and you will see that no matter how long you were quiet for, whenever you decide to speak up and speak out about whatever it is you're passionate about, it will make a difference. And you have that power to make a difference. Even if you don't think you do, I promise you have that power to make a difference.
I'm like tearing up. I get so encouraged when young people really, regardless of whatever the issue is, that they speak up and say, we have a voice and we're going to use it. And I think you're a phenomenal example of saying, we can do this. And I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And we absolutely can do this. And we will.
Yes.
I think maybe I
That's
heard.
right.
I think I heard a campaign speech there.
Oh yes, we
It
sure
was
did, didn't
yeah,
we?
giving a stump speech. It was feeling
Yeah.
that
Are
He's
you
got my
interested?
vote.
Are you interested in
way.
getting involved in politics sometime down the road?
I'm not interested in running for anything, but I'm interested in anything that I can do to be of help in anything. So, yeah.
That's
And
the
you know
first
what?
step. That's usually the first step.
Yeah, exactly. A
That's
lot
how
could
I
change.
got hooked. So yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If you'd have asked me in high school if I was doing anything political, I would have said you're crazy. So, and here I am. So I don't want to say never, but I don't intend on ever running for office. But hey,
Who knows?
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, she's got my vote already. Whenever, right?
exactly.
Um, but I want to say this to you, Hadley, before we let you go here. We are so very impressed with you as a survivor myself. I understand. Even as old as I am, you still have to be kind to yourself. And while you're out here
Hmm.
helping everybody else, don't get to be my age. I'm 6 years old, and that was 56. And just I'll be 57 this year. And you're just now learning to take care of yourself, okay? And you are a phenomenal woman. So you make
Yes.
sure you read that poem by Maya Angelou, okay?
All
About
right.
a phenomenal woman. And most people don't grow up wanting to run for office. Normally, something really burns inside of them where they have to make a difference. And that's
Mm.
how a lot of people get into the race. So,
Amen.
I don't know, but I think we have a future senator on our hands, and all of us would love to help on your campaign. So keep doing what you're doing. And what college did you go to? We didn't ask you that.
I went to Midway University. I played soccer there, and I went
Oh,
there.
Wow.
Yeah, I went there all four
Okay.
years, and I love Midway so much. They are the best school. Such a small school, such a family oriented campus. I loved every minute of it.
Awesome.
well, some people that are very smart get to go there, and then the rest of us have to go to U of L. No, I'm just playing. So I can talk about my alma mater because all my money went there. Okay. Anybody
Mhm.
else say something about U of L, it's going to be a problem. But you're
Mhm.
very highly intelligent. I hope to see you even more and just to watch you grow and progress. That's going to be one of the things on my top list to do. Okay.
Well,
So
thank
I
you.
know you're going to be coming back and joining us sometimes, right? Keeping us
Yes,
informed what's going
of
on.
course.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you.
Yes,
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank
thank
you
you
so much.
Kisses.
guys.
You did a wonderful job.
Bye. Thank
Did
you.
she do a wonderful
Bye.
job? She's so cute. I just love her. Just love her. So we just thank her for. Oh man, I had to do that so I wouldn't cry.
Yeah.
I hear you. I
Five
was,
years old. I understand where she's coming from. I was 3 years old.
Hmm.
Um, I understand. And then in my 20s, in the 90s, my case, you all could look it up, the Commonwealth versus Marshall Quisenberry. It was the first case in the state of the Commonwealth that they got a full conviction on a domestic case. And he
Mm.
did 14 years in prison for what he did to me back in the
Wow.
90s. Yes, he did. He did 14. There are people that don't even do 14 years and they unalive someone, right? But
Right.
I stuck with it. I went up on Frankfurt, all of these type of things to stop the open records law. Why should an inmate receive anything from their victim?
Mm,
Any information from them?
right.
So I really understand, and I'm just so elated to have been able to meet her tonight. But Mr. Dougie Fresh, we got an important call to action.
Yes, we do. Our call to action tonight: protect our public schools. Launch events are happening now. Progress Kentucky is a proud member of the steering committee of Protect Our Schools Kentucky. It's a joint effort to defeat Amendment 2 and ensure public dollars stay in public schools. If you want to find out more and show your support, join a public campaign launch event. Here's a link to the webpage, and the next planned event happens on June 18th. That's the Louisville launch. Also, in the show notes, we have a link to a video featuring Jason Bailey, who is Executive Director of the Kentucky Center of Economic Policy, describing why his organization is opposed to the amendment. And Kimberly, I'll turn it back over to you to close us out.
Yes, sir, most definitely. I mean, like tonight, woo, mm-mm-mm. Beautiful, wonderful show
Mhm.
tonight uh,
Yes.
with the Miss Duvall. I don't even know what to say, but I can say this: that Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, and we are organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. And we are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Our goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. But join us next week for another great show. We will be joined by Ira Shapiro, a longtime Senate staffer and author of the book, The Betrayal: How Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans Abandoned America. Oh, that's going to be a good show. And I bet you Ira's got all kinds of like shh, secret stuff, right? That I can't wait for that one. Our production of this episode, 165, was by the wonderful and cherished Miss Annabel Nagel. And big thanks to Nate Orshan, who wrote and performed our theme songs. You can find out more information and music at natosongs.com. If you want to go head on and you need to listen to it again, listen to it for the first time, whatever the case may be, you can see the live stream on Facebook. I will be looking at that tonight, or on YouTube. Audio podcasts and our show notes are always available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review. Okay, 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. Logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. Go visit them at couchfiremedia.com. You know what? It's Wednesday, it's hump day. You did it. You did it. Do something really, really nice and good for someone and share. Share this podcast. And we will see you next week.